Welcome to the Village Sentry interview with Jared Moskowitz, Democratic candidate for newly formed Congressional District 23. My name is Fred Hadley. How do you do, Jared? May I call you Jared?
Of course, Fred. How you doing? Good morning.
Everything is fine. All right, so why don't you start off, since time is short, keep it on the brief side, a brief biography. Many of us in Palm Beach County are not exactly a household quantity. So start with your place of birth, your college education, and then your political careers. Try to keep it to 2 minutes. And you can mention family, of course. Go ahead.
Sure. So born and raised in Broward County in Coral Springs. Whole family came from New York, from Brooklyn, Canarsie. Before that, they were escaped, Europe during the Holocaust. My grandparents eventually, after retiring from owning a 5 and 10 cent store, one of my grandparents and the other grandparent working for the New York Port Authority, they all retired down here in Florida. My parents followed. I'm born in Broward County in Coral Springs. I grew up here my entire life until I went to college in Washington, D.C. at George Washington University, where I interned in the last year of the Clinton administration and at the Democratic National Committee. I came back here for law school at Nova in Davie. I got elected to the Parkland City Commission at the age of 25. I was the youngest elected official in South Florida at the time. I served there for 6 years. I got elected to the State House in Tallahassee, the legislature, where I served for 6 years as well. I was there during the Marjory Stoneman Douglas school shooting, which was in my backyard in Parkland, where I lived, and where my son went to school, and where I went to high school at Marjory Stoneman Douglas. I helped pass the Marjory Stoneman Douglas School Safety Act, which raised the age to 21 to buy any gun here in the state, amongst many other things. And then after that, I became the Emergency Management Director. I was in charge of responding to the Category 5 Hurricane Michael in the Panhandle. And then the first 18 months of the pandemic, I'm the one who distributed 85 million masks, set up hundreds of testing sites and hundreds of vaccine sites, and brought the vaccine actually to your location in Sentry Village. Now I sit on the Broward County Commission as a Broward County Commissioner, and I am running to replace Ted Deutsch in Congress.
Okay, terrific. I'm going to do a screen share now, and just tell me if you see it, since I don't have any kind of corroboration. Let's click on that, and you should see it's a Word document. You see your website?
I do.
Okay, great. So we're good. All right. So obviously, this is your official website, jaredforflorida.com, and picture there with you want to just describe your family, how old the kids are, and
sure. That's my wife and my 2 sons, Samuel and Max. They're 8 and 5 now, and then you got Obi the dog. He's a sheepadoodle, and he's 2 years old.
Okay, terrific. Now let's just do a little bit of mechanical background. This is, I think it's a newly formed District 23, or at least the area it encompasses is fairly new. We're up here where it says CVW, so we just made it by a whisker to be in the district that you're running for. Does this seem like a reasonable congressional district? Is there any gerrymandering involved with this?
Yeah, it seems like a reasonable district. It's very, very similar to the district Ted had. You'll see the district below where that's district, I believe, 22, where that finger kind of goes all the way up now to basically the Broward County Palm Beach line in Deerfield. That's potentially where they did some gerrymandering because that finger never went that far. They extended it much further to make that more of a solid minority district. But then by doing that, they depleted minorities in 23. So I think that's probably where they did some gerrymandering. But other than that, 23 is very similar to what Ted Deutsch currently represents.
And just for people that are new to politics, what exactly is gerrymandering? Is it a good thing, a bad thing? And the fact that this gerrymander is shaped like a finger, is there any symbolism there?
No, there's no symbolism in the shaping, other than they went all the way up to try to grab more minority voters. Gerrymandering is a bad thing. It's a bad thing when Republicans do it. It's a bad thing when Democrats do it. Both sides are doing gerrymandering based on the states. because obviously, so long as it goes on, both sides are going to try to level their playing field. So, there are districts this cycle that did get gerrymandered significantly in the Tampa area and the Jacksonville area. Republicans did a significant amount of gerrymandering, and that's what happens when they're in control.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. That's fine. That's very good answer. Now let's talk about this race here. I did a little research, and in this primary, there's the presumptive front runner. Congratulations. Then there's Hava Holtauer, who we met the other night at Sentry Village. You were there also. Fort Lauderdale Commissioner Ben Sorensen, who was also there. Alan Ellison and Michael Trout. Now, when I spoke to Michelangelo Hamilton, he's a very young man. He would beat your record if he's elected. You say you were the youngest at the time at 25. I asked him how old he is. He says he's 22. So I ran back to my iPhone and did a quick Google search on eligibility. And according to the United States Constitution, you have to be at least 25 in order to be seated. You could run before you're 25, as long as on the day of your swearing in, you have achieved 25 years of age. So I said to him, you're not eligible, you're too young. So he pointed out, and I of course went home and researched it, that back in 1797, he was a young judge at the time, William Claiborne. He was also 22, and the Constitution was already in place for 1789, so almost 10 years. The 25-year age still applied, and yet he was seated. Not only that, he ran again 2 years later in 1799, and he was only 24. So he was actually seated 2 times, going against the United States Constitution. Do you have any comment on that? Do you believe that he's a legitimate candidate, and why did the election officials qualify him? Do you have any comment on that?
Sure. So I've met Michelangelo once. He seems like a nice kid. He reminds me of when I was running when I was really young. So I applaud him for absolutely doing that. It's good that young people want to get involved in public service. And so I think that's great that he's running. Unfortunately, I think the Constitution is really clear. He would not qualify. He would not be seated. Using an example that's 220 years old, I don't think it will hold any weight. It's an interesting loophole, though, that you can qualify to get on the ballot because there's no age restriction to qualify on the ballot, but you would not be seated. So what would probably happen is, let's say hypothetically, he won. He would not be seated by the House. The governor would then have to call a special election for the district. But listen, I applaud Michael for stepping out there, putting his name out there. It's not easy to do that. And I'm sure that he's going to run for something in the future. He should get due consideration at that time.
So you use hypothetical. We'll have to say with a giant capital H. I mean, I don't think it's likely to happen, but it'd be interesting to see how it would proceed. Okay, let me go back to the screen share. I just want to go over a couple of quick mechanics of the election here. So of course, if anybody has any questions or need information, it's www.pbcelections with an S on the end of it, very important, .org. And this is our current supervisor of elections, Wendy Link, and she's served now, I think she's on her second term. She was originally appointed, but then she was, I believe she was elected on her own. And the most important thing on this website is My Status. If you click on that and put in your name and date of birth and your party, it will tell you whether or not you're set up to receive a vote by mail, whether you're registered, and so on and so forth. So this is the most important thing. All voters should be going to this website now while there's time and check your status. And it's very efficient and very up to date. Now, just to go over a few key dates, the deadline for registering is coming up on the 25th. That's the last day to register to vote or change your affiliation. The early voting usually is 10 days before the primary. This year, the primary is on the 23rd. So it begins on August 8th. It goes through the 21st, which is, I believe, a Sunday. Monday is usually a dead day. That's when they move the machines around. And then Tuesday, the 23rd, of course, is the primary. Now, during early voting, you can vote anywhere in the county at any early voting location. And even if you want to check wait times, if you go to early voting information, they'll tell you how long the wait is at the different things. And finally, the newest way of voting is vote by mail, which used to be called absentee voting, but they dropped that because it has kind of a stigma to it that you did something wrong, you weren't there. So that's going to, the latest you can request a vote by mail is August 13th. Now, the vote by mail ballots are going out, I found out yesterday, on July 13th, which is next week. So very soon, the ballots will be in the hands of the voters. And this is very important. Well, it'll be mailed July 13th. The statute sets 40 days before the primary as the mailing date. All right. And I believe the postage is going to be prepaid. And do you have any comments on vote by mail? Do you think it's a sound process? Any hesitation about recommending vote by mail?
No, I think vote by mail is fantastic. Florida actually has one of the best vote by mail programs in the country. We had a very well-run election 2 years ago. There were no issues, no claims of anything. All the other stuff that people have read about is all nonsense and election posturing. But vote by mail is fantastic. It's easy, it's safe, it's secure. If that's what they choose to do, they should absolutely vote by mail.
Okay. Going back to my, let me see, do I have the right? Oh, right here. All right, going back to this now. The early voting location for Sentry Village, Boca Raton, which on the map here is right here. This is our lake, and this would be the clubhouse. Is you would go right up Lyons Road, make a left on Yamato, or right on State Road 7 or 441, and it's the first left after you turn onto State Road, and that's called the West Boca Branch Library. There's plenty of parking there, and it's pretty easy to do, although sometimes there could be long lines, so you should check that website. All right, so now that we've gotten over the boilerplate part of it, now let's get into some nitty-gritty. One of the key issues that I've been involved with is what you're seeing on your screen now. Can you see this image?
I can.
All right, this would be sugarcane. And just let me, by way of educating some of the newer voters or residents here, sugarcane is the largest crop in Florida. It's bigger than all the other crops combined. You take onions, potatoes, peppers, corn, you put it all into one basket. It doesn't come anywhere near the value of sugarcane. So the problem with sugarcane is the industry has been harvesting it using a very environmentally harmful process called pre-harvest burns. And the point of pre-harvest burns is to get rid of the outer leaf. These leaves have no sugar in it. It's the stalk that contains the sugar. And the reason why this is no good, obviously you can see there's fire, there's smoke, there's ash, there's tremendous pollution to the air. There's settling of black ash in the communities around Lake O, Clewiston, Pahokee, and the Glades. This has been causing childhood asthma, lowering property values. People can't sell their homes. And the industry refuses to move to green harvest. Now, what is green harvest? Well, let me just go down here first. This is a picture of what green harvest is. This is a machine. And what they do is they feed the stalk in and it strips the leaves off. And then there's a man here with a stick that's separating the usable stalk from the useless leaf. I won't say totally useless because it can be used for mulch or products can be made out of these leaves. It does involve trucking it away. Some people say, well, doesn't that hurt the environment? But I don't think it's nearly as harmful. Now, just let me show you one quick little video, if I may. Let's go screen share and over here. And let's just, let's take a quick look at this video.
And the age is 9.
Apologize for the advertising.
Special.
Okay. All right, and I just have one other really short clip here, and this shows you the green harvest. All right, I think you get the idea. They're dividing it into two piles. The leaves will be trucked away, and then they can bring the cane to the mill. Now, what does this have to do with you? I'm glad you asked that question. All right, so let's go into back into our Word document, which is over here. So, according to Florida Politics, Moskowitz, that's you, received Political Action Committee support from two sources. 1,000 from the law firm Gray Robinson's Political Action Committee and 2,500 from U.S. Sugar Corporation based in Clewiston. That's Florida Politics. Now, here's another little clip that I got from Treasure Coast newspapers. The latest advocacy push to separate the industry's political influence from lawmakers, dubbed No Big Sugar Money, has earned the support of several Florida lawmakers, including Treasure Coast Congressman Brian Mast, who is a Republican, I'll note, and State Rep Anna Escamani, who's a Democrat. So it has bipartisan support. The goal of the campaign is to end the influence of big sugar money in politics and to free the leaders we elect in the best interest of their communities. Okay, so let's talk about, obviously, it's no secret that you are taking or have taken money from big sugar. So obviously, your home county is a little further from the sugar fields than Sentry Village, so you probably aren't experiencing the effects. But I can tell you, when I came down here and rode my bicycle, it was almost impossible when on sugar burn days, which are roughly November to March. So explain to us why you're one of the few politicians that's willing to accept money from big sugar.
Yeah, so first of all, Anna Escamani, who you mentioned there, has endorsed my campaign. The Sierra Club, who is the lead on the environment, has endorsed our campaign. The League of Conservation Voters, also an environmental group, has endorsed our campaign. In fact, no other environmental group or leader on the environment has endorsed any campaign but for ours. So I've raised over $1 million. So $1,000 contribution or a $2,500 contribution is very small. I'm not the only one who's taken money from sugar. Ted Deutsch, who served in this district before me, also took money for sugar. To be clear, I am against the burning. I am for going the green route. I actually live next to a pepper farm in Broward County. It's the largest pepper farm, called Hendricks Pepper Farm. My neighborhood is literally right across the road, and they burn at that pepper farm. And I can tell you it messes with my allergies and my kids' allergies. And so I've seen it, not just with the sugar cane, but also what happens when they want to burn the crops to get a new cycle going. So I am against the burning. I am for going the green route, regardless whoever has donated to me.
All right. About a month ago, I interviewed your leading opponent, Ben Sorensen, and I want to just play a little clip and ask you to please comment on what your opponent, your leading opponent, is saying about that.
Friends would walk up to me and just be like, "What the f is in your mug?" And I would just tell them.
Sorry about those ads.
What do you think about the pre-harvest burns of sugar?
So one, Fred, thank you for your advocacy on this and work on this. It is very important. I completely agree with you. This has a massively negative environmental impact. I think I'm the only candidate in my race that is refusing to accept any money from U.S. Sugar. I know one of my opponents here, Moskowitz, has. I am not taking any money from U.S. Sugar because of the practice you just shared, which is has a huge negative environmental impact. And also, other practices of theirs are really major threats and ongoing threats to Lake Okeechobee, to the Everglades. And so as a state, as a member of Congress, what I'm going to be advocating for is to protect our environment. Our environment is the draw that so many come to Florida to celebrate, to experience, and so forth. And so if we're sacrificing that, not only from a tourism standpoint, but also from a health standpoint, we are being very short-sighted, and I promise not to do that and to advocate for our environment up and down.
All right. do you have any comment? And my question to you would be, given that you've raised so much money and you're downplaying the size of the sugar, which obviously it's a minuscule amount, would you consider returning that money? It's still early in the campaign. If you don't need it, why sully yourself? Why dirty your campaign as one of the few candidates that's willing to sell out the environment just for $2,500 from sugar? And by the way, we're not against growing sugar. We know it's important to Florida's economy, jobs, et cetera. Green harvest, as you know, is labor intensive. This will actually add jobs, but it'll take away the poisoning of our atmosphere. Would you like to make an announcement today that you've thought it over and you're going to, in good conscience, return that sugar donation?
Listen, Ted Deutsch has taken money from sugar. He has one of the best.
Ted Deutsch is not in this race. Let's talk.
I understand what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there's no correlation between taking money. Ted Deutsch is one of the best environmental records. The Sierra Club has endorsed our campaign. They haven't endorsed my opponent's campaign. The League of Conservation Voters has endorsed our campaign. Anna Escamani, who you cited there for the pledge, they've all signed up with us because I have a record. I also had a voting record, Fred, in the legislature. It had taken money from sugar at that time also, and had one of the best environmental voting records in the legislature. That's why people who care about the environment have endorsed this campaign regardless of a check. And so, look, I'm not big into signing the pledges. I'm big into action and voting records. My voting record is what matters. The groups that have signed up with us is what matters because they're the ones who have put their stamp of approval on me, and they've not signed up with any other campaign.
Okay, so the answer is no, you're keeping that sugar money this time. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, listen, if people want to donate to my campaign, since I'm running against people who unfortunately are spreading lies about me, I'm obviously going to use that money to put out the truth.
Well, you're not implying that we've stated anything that's a lie. So
no, you're not. I'm not running against you, Fred.
Yeah, no, but I mean, your opponent said that you took this money from sugar, and you did. That's not.
Yeah, no, but they're spreading other lies.
Oh yeah, okay, all right. Well, maybe we'll get to that in a moment. All right. Let's go back to the screen share, if I may. So we pointed out the green harvest. Okay.
Which I support, Fred. I support green harvesting.
Yes. Okay, that's great. And by the way, the only places where they're really doing it are Brazil, Thailand, a few other countries. By the way, Hawaii, which used to be a big sugar growing state, just threw the crop out. They said tourism is more important. People's health is more important than sugar money. All right. So now let's get to the elephant in the room. Everybody wants to know, especially Democrats, should we trust a man and vote for a man that has been appointed by Republican Governor Ron DeSantis, not just once, which was in December of 1918. I'm sorry, this is obviously a mistake. You're not that old. I meant 2018, to Florida's Division of Emergency Management. And then you did resign that position, I think in your second year, because you had an ailing father. He was very, very sick. We can understand that. And then once again, that year, you were appointed a second time by Ron DeSantis to the Broward County Commission. Let's talk about that. Well, before we do, let me just get a comment. This is a gentleman, this is from a Jewish Insider article. By the way, I assume, I feel silly asking a guy whose name is Moskowitz, but I assume you're Jewish. Is that correct?
Great assumption, Fred.
Yeah. Okay. So here's what Stephen Tauber says. He's a professor of science at the University of South Florida, predicted that Moskowitz's service in the DeSantis administration, he was the only Democrat appointed by DeSantis, could hurt him in the Democratic primary, given the governor's posture towards Democrats. And then here's the quote: "For me, anything that DeSantis touches is trafe," Weiner told Jewish Insider. So I would be a little suspicious of Jared Moskowitz. Now, for those non-Jewish viewers, the word trafe is another way of saying something is not kosher. And kosher, of course, has to do with dietary laws, either the manner in which animals are slaughtered or the types of animals. So which is it? Are you pork or are you shrimp?
I'm neither. So
Okay.
let's talk about it. Okay. So look, Rabbi Weiner doesn't know me. And if he did know me, he might know things like when I was the director of emergency manager, I went door to door and vaccinated Holocaust survivors in their homes. And he might learn about other things that I did when I was director. So let's talk about why did I take this job from a governor I didn't vote for and I didn't support. So, I had just gone through a terrible mass shooting in my neighborhood. I watched parents bury their children, come home to an empty room in their house, come home to an empty chair at the dinner table. They visit their kid at the cemetery. No high school graduation, no college, no marriage, no grandkids, no life. And so I was big with the Andrew Gillum campaign. I was going to be on Andrew Gillum's transition team. And so when the governor from the other party called me up and said, we'd love to interview you for emergency management director, because that's what I did in the private sector. I had 10 years of emergency management experience. I immediately said, no, I'm not interested. And I immediately said, no, I'm not interested because look, the guy was running, wall commercials in the primary. And I had just gone through a whole primary race doing everything I could to get Andrew Gillum elected. But then I talked to the parents who government failed those parents in Parkland. 3 layers of government failed those parents in Parkland. One of the things people don't remember is that Parkland was a preventable event. They had hits on this kid, the FBI, BSO, the Broward County School Board. And so I then talked to my Democratic colleagues. I talked to Gwen Graham and Andrew Gillum and the Florida Democratic Party, which, by the way, all publicly supported me taking this job. And they said, Jared, a Democrat has not run a state agency in 25 years. You could run a nonpartisan state agency, an agency that helps people on their time of need. And we'd have someone to call when we need help because, Republican agency heads don't really return calls from Democrats. And so, Fred, look, that's why I decided to do it. I left my family. I left my little kids. I took a 90% pay cut. And I did it because I saw what happened when government failed. And let me tell you what I did when I was there. Let's just talk about the pandemic really quickly. Okay. I handed out 85 million masks. I set up hundreds of testing sites. I worked with the Biden administration setting up federal testing sites. I'm the one who made sure that we had all the swabs and all the test kits and all the PPE that our heroes on the front lines needed. I'm the one who set up all the vaccine sites. We started with seniors here in the state of Florida. We were the first state to start with seniors. When I started vaccinating in nursing homes and ALFs, I started in Broward and Palm Beach County, my home area. And when it came time to bringing my democratic values to the office, I vaccinated Holocaust survivors in their homes. I vaccinated people in mobile home parks. I vaccinated people in HUD housing. I vaccinated undocumented workers. I partnered with 250 Black churches across this state to make sure that we could get the vaccine into minority communities by working with trusted partners. Now, let me ask this question. Do you think if a Democrat was not in charge of that agency, any of that stuff would happen? And I can prove it wouldn't have. Within 5 days of me leaving, because my dad was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, within 5 days, the governor closed every testing site, he closed every vaccine site, and he got rid of the state of emergency in the state of Florida. And so the reason I served was because I saw what happened when government failed. And the fact is I brought my democratic values to the office. And let me give you one more piece. One of my opponents who continues to bring this up and make this an issue, he's only started to make it an issue since he started running. I got plenty of text messages and emails from him telling me I did a great job, thanking me for everything I'm doing for his community, congratulating me on the appointment to the Broward County Commission, and wanting to come and attend my swearing in. And so, listen, this is politics. I knew when I took that job, someone would try to make it political in a future race, but I did the right thing. I didn't do the easy thing, Fred. The easy thing would have been say no, stay home with my family, and not serve. But my community in Broward and Palm Beach County was better off because I was there.
Okay, so you mentioned that you took this job, which involved sacrifice, and you left your family and were absent for many, many months and busy or whatever, not available.
Yeah, I didn't come home. I didn't come home for 5 months. I didn't see my kids for 5 months.
Right, that's fine. But isn't it so that you also abandoned your constituents? Who replaced you when you vacated that seat after the December 2018 appointment? You started serving in 2019. Who became what happened to that state representative seat? My understanding is that it was vacant for at least a year. Didn't you abandon your constituents by taking that appointment?
No, I didn't abandon my constituents. In fact, I represented my constituents at a higher level. Let me talk about how much more good I was able to help my constituents in that job. Every Democrat who's a state representative does everything they can, but look, Democrats can't do much in the legislature because Republicans dramatically outnumber us. They can pass every bill. All Democrats can vote no. The bill still passes. It still become law. But running an agency where I can help people and I can sign purchase orders and I can decide what happens, much more powerful. I was the most powerful Democrat other than our agricultural commissioner in Tallahassee. In fact, one could argue during the pandemic, I was the lead Democrat in the state helping get supplies out. It's why every Democratic congressman, every Democratic state representative, every Democrat state senator called me and asked for help. It's why 100 of them, Fred, have endorsed this campaign. It's why Hillary Clinton, Secretary Hillary Clinton, okay, has endorsed this campaign. She's endorsed very few open races. This is one of the open races she's decided to endorse. And Secretary Clinton has endorsed me because she knows I have Democratic values. Almost every union has endorsed me in this campaign. The teachers union, the AFL-CIO, the SEIU, the Communication Workers of America have endorsed this campaign. And they haven't endorsed my opponent's campaign because they know having a Democrat at the table helped bring Democratic values to the state. And I was replaced by Dan Daly, who's doing a fantastic job.
Okay, let's move on. A couple more issues I wanted to discuss with you, if I may. Let me see, is this the right one? Yeah, we're back on to this. Wait. Oh, wait a second. Let me see, share. Oh, yeah, okay. So, I just want to, I want to just point out what your opponent said about that and ask you for your comment on, let's just say, okay. And I just have to go to a different screen share. Okay. So that would be, so I guess it's this one. Let's see. Yeah. All right. So this is, I asked your opponent what your negatives were, and here's what he told us.
One simple but brilliant trick to cool your home in 90 seconds. Tired of hot and...
All right. Apologize for the edge.
Obviously, I would say you and Jared are the front runners at this point. So what else can you tell the voters that are watching this why you don't think your opponent should be supported? What are his weaknesses? And then I'll let you give it the other side. What do you think his strengths are? But start with the weaknesses because everybody likes the negatives, and it's always the sexier subject. What are Jared Moskowitz's principal faults or weaknesses?
Sure. So I'm a lifelong Democrat. I believe in democratic core values and principles of fairness and equality. Jared Moskowitz has been given 2 political jobs by Ron DeSantis, who I think leads horrible policies and pushes marginalizing communities, marginalizing LGBTQ, attacking schools, attacking parents that want to keep children safe during COVID. And Jared Moskowitz was the emergency management director under Ron DeSantis, reported Ron DeSantis, carried out Ron DeSantis's COVID policies. So if you remember, I mean, I know we're getting a little away from COVID already, but if you remember, Ron DeSantis was choosing specific communities of privilege to roll out vaccines. Jared Moskowitz was enacting that policy. Ron DeSantis was attacking school boards, taking money away from school boards that wanted to have children wear masks. My children, I wanted them wearing masks. Jared Moskowitz was part of Ron DeSantis' engine that enacted these horrible COVID policies. We do not need someone, do not want someone that is going to be attacking our schools, attacking our communities, our minority communities. And this is what Jared was doing under Ron DeSantis's watch. So that is not what we need. And then another piece that has come out is when Jared Moskowitz was working at Ashford, a private contractor, Jared Moskowitz was the lead general counsel there. And that company during that time wrote a $500,000 super PAC check to a Trump super PAC in 2018. I reject Trump policies and the super PAC policies that he perpetuated. And it turns out this was even an illegal contribution that Jared was writing back and forth with the FEC about. So those are not the values we need as Democrats representing us in Congress.
All right, weather is.
Okay, let's just stop the share. All right, that was quite a mouthful. I want to give you obviously a chance. Obviously, he doesn't agree with you about the appointments and so on. What can you say to answer your primary opponent?
Yeah, it's unfortunate that he's not telling the voters why he should be a congressman and what he's going to do for people who are struggling with their rent or struggling for gas. It's unfortunately he's not telling people why why he should go to Congress and what he's going to do. Quite frankly, he's got no experience fighting Republicans at all or getting anything accomplished. And he's just obsessed with me. But the truth of the matter is, Fred, he's just a liar. This is all a lie. He's lying about the whole thing. And I'll go in reverse order. Okay. He's talking about this Trump contribution. Okay. I worked at a company. The company made a contribution. It has nothing to do with me. And when Jim DeFeeti on television asked him about it, he admitted it was an unsubstantiated claim. It's just something he's come up with in his head. So I'm not going to address that any further. Donald Trump is the greatest threat to democracy, and every Democrat needs to do everything we can to make sure he never returns to power. So that's lie number one. Lie number two.
May I just ask you one question?
Sure.
You both have school-age children. Would you address the fact that DeSantis threatened to withhold funds from school districts that force kids? First of all, what's your policy with your kids? Do you want them to be protected with masks?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great question.
What do you think about what DeSantis did? He
Hold on. Well, Fred,
children and teachers to serious harm. People would die.
Yeah, Fred, let me answer the question. Let me answer the question.
Sure.
Okay. So sure. His second charge is also a lie. Okay. All of those things he said DeSantis did, which are true and I oppose, he did them after I left. The fighting with the schools on the masks, I wasn't there anymore. I was gone. I had left. April 30th was my last day. All of the suing of the school boards, taking away their funding, I wasn't there. I was not in the administration anymore. The fighting with the LGBTQ community on Don't Say Gay, which I oppose, I wasn't there anymore. And so all of these things that my opponent just gave as reasons that I'm this horrible person, it's a lie. It's all a lie. Now, let's talk about the policies themselves. I was for masks. I handed out 85 million of them, Fred. I had my kids were masked. I changed my name on Twitter to Jared Moskowitz, which got lots of national news when I did that. I was for the vaccine. I handed out the vaccine. I partnered with the AIDS Foundation to make sure that we could get the vaccine into the LGBTQ community because people who are immunocompromised needed it. I worked with my opponent. My opponent asked for a vaccine site in Fort Lauderdale. He got it. My opponent asked for bottled water when they had a boil water alert, and he got it because he asked for that. So my opponent worked with me when I was the director of emergency management, and he directly benefited and his residents directly benefited because he had access to me. He went on Jim DeFeeti and said, well, I don't really know Jared Moskowitz. Another lie. He knows me real well, and I got plenty of text messages and emails to show how well he knows me and how much he supported me and how well of a job I did. His words, not mine. This is politics as usual. It's exactly what people hate in politicians, in which they did one thing, they say another for their own benefit. But listen, I opposed Ron DeSantis. I oppose him today. I've never voted for anybody other than a Democrat. It's why Hillary Clinton has said I'm the best Democrat in the race. It's why 100 other Democrats have said I'm the best Democrat in the race. It's why every Democratic organization has said I'm the best Democrat in the race. And my opponent is pulling its strings because not one organization, not one Democratic organization has supported his campaign with all of the lies and with all of the nonsense he has been spewing, because I have a 15-year record fighting for democratic values and he doesn't.
Okay, by the way, I did ask him, can he say anything nice about you? He says, yeah, you have a nice wife and a couple of lovely children.
Oh, yeah, that's great. Next time, Fred, you're asking, ask him about how I did when I raised the age to 21 to buy a gun in the state, when I got Republicans to vote for 3-day waiting periods, when we mandated red flag laws, and we were the first 6 states in the nation to do that. By the way, we raised the age to 21 to buy a gun in this state 4 years before New York and Rhode Island. Ask him about that. I see, he's not willing to say that that was a good job. By the way, he supports that piece of legislation. And so again, Fred, look, this is politics as usual. The voters are smarter than what my opponent is trying to spin and sell them. It is what it is. This is what happens every time there's an election season. You notice how, Fred, and look, I have the same Oppo research on him. You notice how I'm not saying he did this and he did that and he took this vote and he took that vote. And I could do that all day long, but that's not a reason why voters should vote for me. They should vote for me because of what I've accomplished. They should vote for me because as Ted Deutsch leaves, who's going to fill those shoes? Who's going to go in and fight the Republicans? We might be, quite frankly, in the minority. Who's going to go there to make sure that we're protecting Medicare and Social Security and that we're trying to codify reproductive rights into law? Who's going to fight on the economy? Who's going to support the state of Israel? I have a 15-year record of doing all that. Words are meaningless. Actions are more important.
All right. So here is one more subject. Oh, by the way, we did take a look at your financial disclosure. Apparently, you've got a pretty good war chest. The only other one that we could find that is filed was Ellison. So it looks like you've got plenty of money. I think about $250,000 of that represented a loan that you made. Is that correct to the campaign?
Yeah, that was the last report. We've raised over $1 million now.
Oh, you're over $1 million now. Okay. By the way, this is a picture of you. I want to just cool you off a little bit here in Temple Beth Shalom, which is in Sentry Village, Boca Raton. And you were here Tuesday night at the Candidates Forum, and you spoke very, very well, very persuasively. You looked and acted like the front runner that you are. So I want to compliment you for coming here. And you're coming back. And your campaign sent us a copy of the flyer. And you're going to have a bagel rally, bagels and coffee with Commissioner Jared Moskowitz. And that'll be Sunday, June 17th from 10 to 11 at Temple Beth Shalom. And you don't have, the old expression, you don't have to be Jewish to like Levi's Rye. You don't have to be Jewish to meet Commissioner Jared Moskowitz. All faiths or no faiths are welcome, which we're looking forward to seeing you at that.
Yeah, and I'm coming with Maria Sachs, who was the one.
Oh yes, that is mentioned. That is mentioned here, I think.
Yeah, it's right. It's right up there. I'm coming.
There it is.
I'm coming with Commissioner.
Maria's a good friend of Century Village. In fact, her husband Peter is currently representing us in the 2028 acquisition thing.
Well, let me give you a little history. I worked for Peter. He gave me my first job out of law school, and Maria is the commissioner I worked with when I brought the vaccines to Sentry Village.
Okay, that's great. And we did get them very early. And if you had anything to do with that, because I was on that line day one, I want to thank you.
I was the guy, Fred, when my opponent my opponent was saying that we chose all of these places. You're right. I did choose Sentry Village. I did choose Windmore. I did choose Palm Air. I chose to bring the vaccine where there were large concentrations of seniors so that I could save as many lives as possible.
Okay. So now we get to my other big issue besides sugar. And first of all, do you know what the state motto is of Florida? And don't be embarrassed if you don't, because very few people do.
Not offhand, Fred. Tell me.
Well, it's the same as the United States, and that is...
In God we trust.
In God we trust. All right. Now, also, you mentioned you're Jewish. I'm Jewish by birth, although I'm a very secular Jew. I don't follow any religion. I don't pray. I don't believe in the supreme being. So I wanted to ask you, in this country, United States of America, do you know what the largest group by religious denomination is? Obviously, we know that Jews only make up about 3% of America. What's the largest group today? Do you have any idea?
I'm going to go with Christians.
Okay, good guess, but you would happen to be wrong. And the answer is atheist. Now, I know atheism is not religion, but it's a form of religious denomination. Atheists now account for 29% of the population. Religion is losing a lot of favor. Well, it's a combination of things. First of all, there's so many bad things that happen in the world, starting, I guess you could go back even earlier, but certainly the Holocaust is a place to start. Where was God then? Where was God during hurricanes and tornadoes? Where was God during COVID? Where was God during Donald Trump? And so on and so forth. So people are losing faith, I guess is the actual word to use. And of course, COVID is also weakened religion because they don't go to the churches or the synagogues in the numbers that they used to. So my position as an atheist is that I believe in a separation of church and state. Now, every time I take out money from my wallet, it says, "In God we trust," the national motto, the Florida model. I don't think it belongs there. It wasn't always on the currency. When I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States, the current version is one nation under God. Here it is. And that didn't become the current version until 1954. Now, I know you're a little young to remember Senator Joe McCarthy, but he was a demagogue, sort of like an early Donald Trump, if you will. In fact, they have a common friend in Roy Cong, who represented Senator McCarthy, also represented Donald Trump. And it was during that hysteria, during that 1950s post-World War II communist fear that we added, that the country added these words. As you can see, the original iteration in 1892 just said one nation indivisible, and it lasted that way all the way until the 50s. So, and this was an ad that is in the Sunday Times this week, and I was very pleased to see it. And it says, "I'm secular and I vote." And what it's trying to tell candidates is that, hey, we're atheists. We're the largest group now in the country, probably even larger than 29%, because a lot of people are in the closet. They don't want to admit that they don't believe in God or that they don't pray and all of this stuff. And of course, no politician that I know of has ever successfully been elected on an atheist slate because the fear of the Bible and the religious organizations. So anyway, this is a guy that put this together, and he says, "I want Congress." Now that's where you are headed if all goes well. So please observe what he's saying. He wants religion out of government and social policy. Keep religion out of public schools. Keep religion out of bedrooms, personal lives, and healthcare decisions, including when and whether to have children and whom to love or marry, and use my tax dollars only for evidence-based, not faith-based purposes. If you agree with me, please vote your secular values. And he's got a website, FFRF, which is Freedom from Religion Foundation.us. And there's a toll-free phone number if anybody wants to donate money. So where does that leave you? Where do you stand? Do you believe that there's too much religion in society, that we need to stop saying one nation under God, that we need to remove it from the money and from the flag? What's your opinion, please? Well,
by the way, if you put that back on the screen, Fred, because he had it under that pledge, if you could, please. Yeah. There were a number of issues, and then of course I'll answer your question. So look, I'm Jewish. I believe in the Jewish religion. I would put myself somewhere between reform and conservative. I don't make religion part of my platform. I actually don't believe religion belongs in politics. I firmly believe in the separation of church and state. And I firmly believe that atheists have a right to try to continue to get religion out of government. Look at these four platforms. Keep religion out of government and social policy. I agree with that. Keep religion out of public schools. I agree with that. I'm against prayer in school. Keep religion out of bedrooms, personal lives, healthcare decisions, including women. I agree with that. That's the whole Roe v. Wade debate. Use my tax dollars only for evidence-based, not faith-based purposes. I agree with that also. We should not be using tax dollars for faith-based purposes. It only should be for evidence-based purposes. And so I agree with all of those. And so listen, I'm Jewish. I believe in faith. I believe in God. But at the same time, I don't demagogue atheists. Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? We'll never know, perhaps. But at the end of the day, religion does not belong in government. I'm a firm believer in the separation of church and state. I don't believe one person's religious views should be pushed on the nation. But But look, whether in God we trust is on money or on flags at the end of the day, I don't know. I don't believe that has any bearing. And by the way, if it did, 30% of this country wouldn't be atheists. So it's more important to me about our policies. It's more important to me about what the Supreme Court is doing. There was just a ruling, by the way, that's going to allow more religion in sports and on sports fields in high school. I'm against that decision. I think that's a mistake. And so even as someone who's Jewish and even as someone who believes in God, I can also believe that atheists absolutely unequivocally have their right, and they should be protected to have that right, and religion shouldn't be forced upon them.
So if you get elected to Congress, would you introduce a bill saying that we should not have "In God We Trust" on currency and as our national motto? It's terribly exclusive to people that don't believe in God. This country was founded on the right to worship or not worship at your own personal discretion. But we don't believe in institutionalized racism or a government religion and all of that. So why is every government building have "In God We Trust" on it? There's a contradiction there. Can you address that? Would you be willing? I know it would be very politically disastrous for a budding congressperson to do this, but would you consider removing that just because it is excluding of people that aren't? It would be like almost like if somebody said, let's put "In Allah We Trust" on our currency. That would offend a lot of people that aren't Muslims. And I'm not singling out Muslimism. It's a perfectly valid faith, but you get the point. Would you be in favor of?
Yeah, Fred, I would give it due consideration. I mean, I will tell you this, I am wary about, all of this, taking stuff down. I mean, obviously, there are things that need to be gone. All of the stuff from the conservative South, all of the stuff, that was pro-slavery, all of those monuments, all of that stuff needs to come down. But also it's starting to get too far, wanting to take down George Washington and Abraham Lincoln and Thomas Jefferson, and all this stuff. Not everyone was perfect, but these were men, presidents, these were founders of the country. We need to teach about them. And I think we should teach about atheism, by the way, and allow people to understand that there are multiple sides to this. But I would give it due consideration. But I'm not someone who wants to go and to start taking things down off of buildings.
Okay, fair enough. And I think your position is pretty sound, by the way. All right, so in the remaining time left, and let's just make these, if we can, quick. Let's talk about January 6th. I assume you've seen the hearings. You saw, what was her name? Kennedy Hutchinson's testimony about Trump grabbing the steering wheel. Where do you think this is going? Do you think that he's going to be locked up? You're supported by Hillary Clinton. Trump's favorite expression was "lock her up." Is it time to lock him up? What do you think this is going to be?
Yeah, well, listen, Democrats' strategy can't be, oh, he's going to get arrested and wind up in jail. Our strategy has to be to make sure if he decides to run, which the rumors are he's going to run, that we do everything we can to make sure he doesn't return. Let me be clear. Donald Trump is a clear and present danger to this country. He is the most dangerous person in this country that could get into that office. If you think the first 4 years of him were bad, the sequel will be worse. We will not recognize this country. The hatred that he unleashed in his first term would be worse if he were to come back to power. So Democrats have to do everything we can. January 6th was an insurrection, period. Okay. They tried to subvert the election, period. He tried to steal the election, period. He tried to go against the US Constitution and end democracy, period. All of these things happen. And but for a dozen or so people, we would be having a different conversation, because perhaps Donald Trump wouldn't have left and we wouldn't have recognized this country anymore, and we'd be a banana republic. So Democrats could not be apathetic. I know there's a lot going on. I know we have a lot of distractions, but 2 years from now, not just the midterms that are coming up, which are very important, because if the Republicans get the House, I think they're going to try to impeach Joe Biden to try to make him weaker against potentially Donald Trump. But we have to do everything we can. And I know gas prices are $5. I know food is more expensive. supply chain issues, inflation, and there's a lot of reasons why that's going on. You know, $6 trillion were pumped into the economy to starve off a depression. You had obviously the war in Ukraine. China's economy continues to shut down. And oh, by the way, we turned the world off for 2 years during the pandemic. It's a complicated reason why it's happening. It's not Joe Biden. I know the media wants a boogeyman. Only if he was that powerful, by the way, Joe Biden would be doing a lot of other things that Democrats would want. But we have to make sure this man and Donald Trump never returns to power. Otherwise, Fred, we won't recognize this country. Should he be in jail? I think there's enough evidence that a grand jury should probably indict him.
Okay, fine. Now, looking into the crystal ball, let's assume he is indicted and he's not able to run for office again. Guess who's looking to fill his shoes? A certain political, shall we say, supporter of yours, Ron DeSantis. What if he were to run in 2024? Would you then be appointed by President DeSantis? I know this is all hypothetical, but what's your feeling on that? Are you going to stay in Congress and resist the urge to be an appointee again?
Yeah, there's no urge there, Fred. I mean, listen, I opposed Ron DeSantis when he ran for governor. I'm opposing him in his reelection. I will oppose him if he runs for president. I oppose all of his policies that he did in the last legislative session that demagogued people, that divided, all of the hatred. It's totally ridiculous, all of those policies. It's politically driven to try to get Republicans foaming out of the mouth and angry as possible. It's all about the next election. And so, look, I'm running for Congress. If I get elected, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure Democrats stay in power and we don't allow Republicans to come back. Because, by the way, I don't care if it's Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis. It ain't just them. They have minions in the House and in the Senate that are willing to do whatever they want. And that's why it's so dangerous and their policies are so dangerous. But let's be clear, Donald Trump is the one right now who's probably going to be announcing in the next couple of weeks or months. And he is by far the gravest threat I think this country faces domestically at the moment.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more on that one. So let's talk briefly. Of course, I know what your position will be almost automatically, but where do you stand on Israel, the claims by Palestine that it's an illegally occupied land, the suggestions that only a two-state solution, or maybe we should swap land for peace? Where do you fall in that awfully complex and seemingly insoluble mess that the Middle East is?
Yeah, so Ted Deutsch and I have almost the identical position when it comes to the state of Israel. I'm for a two-state solution, and I think we should try to do everything we can. I think the state of Israel, people don't realize this. I mean, they supply water and power to the Palestinian territories. And so, listen, I think a two-state solution is the only thing that's long-term. Jerusalem belongs to Israel. I don't support going back to the 1967 lines. And quite frankly, it's because I just want to apply the same rules to Israel that every other country gets. When you get attacked and you lose, you don't get your stuff back. That's usually not what happens. And so Israel has a right to exist. Many folks, unfortunately, in Gaza don't believe that. They want to wipe Israel off the face of the map. Let's not forget, Israel has offered many peace deals, some of which may never be offered again to the Palestinians. They rejected all of those peace deals. The Israelis are now making more friends in the Middle East. But we have to do everything we can to fight against anti-Semitism. Israel doesn't do everything right. The United States doesn't do everything right. Nobody bats 1,000. But at the end of the day, a lot of hatred towards Israel is rooted in anti-Semitism. It's why, you see the UN saying Israel is the greatest human rights violator in the world. Really, North Korea isn't worse. Really, China isn't worse. I mean, come on, that's a joke. We're smarter than that. But look, Israel and the United States is a very important bond. We have to keep that bond. We have to make sure that we're strengthening Israel's military. We have to make sure that we're fighting against Iran's march to get a nuclear weapon. But I'm going to continue the Ted Deutsch policies towards the state of Israel.
All right. What's the bigger threat to world security today, China or Russia? Or
I mean, that's asking me who was worse, Hitler or Stalin. I mean, listen, I'm not going to say who's worse. I mean, right now it's probably Russia, right? At this exact moment in time, Putin is clearly unhinged, invading a country, killing innocent people and civilians. And so, right now it might be Russia. That's why the world, I think, has come together and opposing Russia and Putin's policies. He's a clear dictator, a murderous dictator. But at the end of the day, China is a very long-term threat. Their continued rise, their continued strength and military power. They're playing the millennia game, not the next decade game. And so we have to continue to watch China's threat. No question about that.
Sure. Now, you referenced a little while that you're against going back to the pre-67 borders because the rules of the game are you fight a war, you win, you get to keep the spoils of the war. Let's apply that to Ukraine. Right now, the eastern third of the country is virtually leveled. I don't know if there's any structures left, and clearly Putin wants to annex that. So under what you just stated about Israel, he should get to keep that if he's the military victor. Do you see a contradiction there, or maybe you agree he should get to keep it? What's your position?
No, because he's the aggressor. Israel was attacked. They weren't the aggressor. See, if Israel didn't go in there and win and seize land, they were attacked at the end of the day from multiple sides. And they were trying to be wiped off the face of the earth. If Ukraine attacked Russia, it would be a completely different conversation. And so, no, the two situations are not analogous because in this instance, Ukraine was the victim, just like Israel was the victim.
Now, if elected, and of course, we wish you every luck with that, and you probably will be elected based on, just the preliminary endorsements. You're over 100, is that correct, endorsements?
Over 100 Democrat elected officials and organizations around the state and nationally have endorsed us in this race.
What do you want to be when you go to Washington? Do you want to be on a foreign relations committee? Do you want to deal with domestic terrorism? What do you think how you could best apply yourself to national affairs?
Well, this seat between Ted Deutsch and Robert Wexler before has been on judiciary. So I am interested in judiciary. I'm interested in that, quite frankly, again, because I think the Republicans are going to try to impeach Joe Biden if they take the House. And protecting Joe Biden and preventing Donald Trump and protecting democracy, I think, is the most important thing. We can't have a banana republic where we just impeach presidents politically because it's good for us in an election. So I'm looking at judiciary. We got to protect Joe Biden, protect Democrats. Foreign relations, obviously, is extremely interesting to me. I think that's extremely important. That would be a good committee. But listen, I'm not focused on that at the moment. I'm focused on winning the primary, most importantly on August 23rd, but then running against whoever the Republicans put up. They're going to do everything they can to try to win this seat, to try to steal this. We got to keep this seat in Democratic hands. The NRCC had this seat on their list. They're going to try to put money into this. I am the strongest Democrat to keep this seat. None of my opponents have the record that I have. I can appeal to independents, which I think will be a very pivotal vote in this general election. Democrats are facing a lot of headwinds. We know that. The generic balloting clearly favors Republicans. And so listen, after I win, we can focus on what committees are serving. But right now, I'm most interested in representing, winning the race and representing my constituents at the highest level.
Sure. Now, this is not exactly a national issue, but it's a burning issue for many of us, especially us senior citizens. I'm going to be 74 next month that live in condominiums in Florida. And I'm referring to the Surfside collapse, Champlain Towers South, and the adequacy of reserve funds and the frequency of inspections. So as you perhaps prepare to transition from local politics to national politics, do you have any comments on that? Has government failed condominiums? Yeah. So let's
Yeah, so, even though obviously that was a state issue, but I think, look, we could look at that nationally, obviously. I was happy to see the legislature take action. I don't think the bill was as far as I would like to go. I don't think you should be able to waive reserves, quite frankly. I know they changed it to like a supermajority, but I don't think you should be able to waive reserves because I also think things like structural integrity of a building should be public. And I voted for that, actually. I pushed for that on the county commission in Broward. that all structural reports of all condominiums should be a public document, so that people know if there are structural issues with a building. I think that's extremely important. I mean, listen, Surfside was a extreme tragedy. It is the worst example, unfortunately, of what happens when people are aware of an impending disaster and don't do anything about it. It was good to see that there was a bipartisan response to that. Ron DeSantis and Joe Biden came together. It was very rare, obviously, to see that, but that's what happens when we have disasters, right? They're not supposed to be political. We're supposed to rise up together and solve that issue together. I'm also worried, by the way, when it comes to condos, about property insurance. Property insurance is a huge issue in the state, and the legislature, in my opinion, failed to address that strong enough. Condos are having their insurance raised dramatically. Hurricanes are being used as the excuse. Well, I'm sorry, did insurance companies just find out that Florida have hurricanes? It's totally ridiculous and not believable. And I think the legislature in the state has to do more to protect condominiums and homeowners to make sure that property insurance is available and affordable.
What books or, magazines or newspapers? This is a softball question.
Yeah, this is the Sarah Palin question, right? I read everything.
No, I assume you read the Sun Sentinel and.
I read the Sun Sentinel. I go on CNN.com. I go on, Drudge Report to find out what the other side is saying, because I think it's always interesting to see how things are being spun from the other side, so we know what we're fighting against. I read the New York Times from time to time. I'm reading a lot of children's books lately, since I read to my kids before bed.
Oh, well, all right. So what about the Sun Sentinel? Have either they or the Post interviewed you guys yet?
I just had the Post interview yesterday, and so we'll see what the Post does. The Sun Sentinel
was that a joint interview or?
No, they were by ourselves. So I did it. It's all individually. We'll see what when the Sun Sentinel schedules that. I've been interviewed by the Sun Sentinel before, and the Sun Sentinel has endorsed me in my previous races. And by the way, the Sun Sentinel said I did a great job as the emergency management director in several articles. So I look forward to the Sun Sentinel endorsement. I think it's extremely important.
I know back in 2012, in your first race, I think against Gleason, we had a landslide, 69% victory. They said, although you're both qualified, we think the edge goes to Jared Moskowitz because of his knowledge of local issues. And that's quite a nice endorsement that you received. All right, so at this point, we'll let you make a closing statement. Try to address the needs of seniors. I've already mentioned a little bit about condos, and tell us about what you're going to say, maybe a little preview at your rally coming up on the 17th, which is Sunday at 10 a.m. Any kind of closing statement. We'd love to hear what your summary on this is.
Yeah, no, listen, Fred, first of all, thank you for inviting me here today. Thank you for the opportunity to address some of the misinformation that's being put out and to talk about why I believe I'm the best person to serve and what I bring to the table. Listen, Ted Deutsch has been a tremendous congressman for this area. This area has been very blessed to have both Ted Deutsch and Robert Wexler and Ron Klein. We've had really good representatives in this area. And with the stakes being so high in this country right now, I know we say this election is the most important election, and we keep saying that, but really the stakes couldn't be any higher for the future of this country. And I think it's going to take a record of leadership, a record of accomplishments, of getting things done to hit the ground running. There's no time for 4 or 5, 6 years to learn the process on how all this works. It's just too important. So yes, listen, I want to fight to protect Medicare. I want to fight to protect Social Security for seniors, because Rick Scott wants to take those things away. He wants to raise tax on middle class. That's part of the platform he put out. So if Republicans come to power, they're going to try to bleed Social Security and bleed Medicare like they've talked about for years. And that's why the Roe v. Wade decision is so important. It's not just important that obviously they've taken women's rights away, something they've fought for 40 years, and they stole 2 Supreme Court justice seats to do it. And we have to do everything we can to put that into law. It's that if Democrats don't respond electorally, and we don't come out in droves and show them that we're not going to stand for this, the message Republicans will learn is we can do whatever we want and get away with it. And yes, then Social Security will be on the table, and Medicare will be on the table, and LGBTQ rights will be on the table. because they will see that they suffered no penalty in the voting booth. And so that's why I'm running. I'm running to make sure that we can protect our democracy, protect the rights we have, and continue to expand them and protect the things that are important to us. Listen, my grandfather, worked for a union. My dad went to NYU on a union scholarship. Having his pension was extremely important. Republicans want to strip those away and have tried to do that many times over. And so, I know how important these things are for seniors and what's on the line. And that's why they should vote for me on August 23rd.
Okay, terrific. Well, thank you very, very much. This has been a very enlightening and informative interview, and you were very generous with your time. And we wish you, every luck in the August 23rd primary. And thanks for doing the interview. And we'll look forward to seeing you on July 17th at Temple Beth Shalom, 10 o'clock in the morning. Everybody's invited, correct?
Everyone's invited.
If a Republican wants to come and get a free bagel, is that okay with you?
Anyone can come and get a free bagel. Come on, this isn't this is inclusive.
Even an atheist, right?
Even all the atheists can come get a free bagel.
There you go. All right. Well, thanks again, and best of luck. And really appreciate you giving us all this time for this interview. We know some of the questions were a little prickly or argumentative, but we're just trying to let the voters get as much information.
Fred, that's okay. We got to be prepared to fight Republicans. They don't fight, but they don't play by the same rules. They cheat. They do all sorts of stuff. So you need someone who's been in the arena and battle and knows how to fight them.
Right. Okay. Well, once again, thank you very much, and have a great day.
Thanks, Fred.
Bye now.